Hello, this is Lisa Russick with the podcast We're All Psychic. And where have I been and where has this podcast disappeared to over the last couple of weeks? Well, I've been pretty laid up. We didn't have any guests. I do have one recorded with Barbara With, but she asked me to hold off on posting it until she had something on her website ready for you guys. And yes, I still think we're all psychic. And this is my bedroom. And I'm going to show you my view out here. And from my bedroom, there's another window over there. This place is rad. I love it here. And this podcast is about. I had a podcast planned today, and we got the times mixed up, and I kind of got a little snippy with her. She was actually a lot cooler than I was. So, I kind of want to talk about trying to, for the first, trying to always keep that attitude of like being in the mentality of a professional healer. But, being in that mentality, I kind of feel like I should do it all the time. If you listen to the podcast I made called The Walking Spiritual Talk, that's kind of what I mean. I do implement my spirituality into everything I do. And sometimes I think that like, I don't always do it, of course. And I'm working on that. So I did offer you a podcast on Instagram saying I would post something today. So I will. We didn't get to do that one with her today. But so I'm going to talk to you today. I'm going to tell you about my experiences as a medium, which I don't think I've ever done in just a whole podcast. Like basically, we've had in this podcast, if you like mediumship, we have tons of mediumship podcasts. And all kinds of mediums have come on the show. And I was actually just listening to a podcast I did with Brandy Van. I think that was, a couple of years ago. And she's just fabulous. And we had a discussion about, I love this conversation we had because she thought, you can't be a psychic. You can be a psychic or you can be a psychic medium. And she says, but you can't always be taught to be a medium. And I thought differently. And we talked about that. And I loved it, the conversation. It kind of was like a spiritual debate. Ooh, it's so fun that we can have like conversations about this stuff. And sometimes I forget people in my life who aren't working with the energy maybe all the time like I do, living alone and doing readings for a living, not really doing much other than going out to dance sometimes or, go back to Decatur, see family and stuff. And, I really do try to do it. Sometimes being so isolated when I'm put into a real life situation, I'm not reacting the best way I'd like to. And, even in just, in my zone, in my atmosphere of being, in my apartment with my massive windows that I love and, ready to do readings and feeling healthy. And, by that, I mean, if you don't know and you're new to this show, I have a hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and it keeps me down sometimes. And it did. That's what I've been sick with. That's why we haven't had many podcasts. So anyway, let's transition into talking about what I experience with mediumship. I'm going to bring together for you what I talked about in the very beginning. Always trying to keep that mentality and my experiences with mediumship because they go together, I think. So, first of all, I want to start off with talking about, for people who are new and don't listen to the podcast regularly, my first spirit contact was at 17. And that was when my cousin died and his spirit came right before I got the news. And that was just mind blowing. That stuff didn't happen to me, and that was really, of course, him dying was mortifying. So later I had my spirit guide come through and other spirits were coming through too. I just didn't really know what was going on, but my spirit guide, Sam, came into my life when I was around 22 or 23 and I started actively talking with him. And then sometimes I would practice with friends when I got to know them better. I feel like I want to ask you some stuff. And I did this with my first husband, and at that time I didn't think of myself as a spiritual person. I didn't think of myself as a psychic. But I wanted to practice. I felt like there was something going on here, a lot going on here that I could maybe like change my life around from this negative mentality I always had. Oh my gosh, of course. I have the window open in the other room. Yard work time at the apartment complex. I'll be right back. Peace and quiet. Whoo! cannot be denied as one of the greatest things on the planet other than music, which is kind of weird. Peace and quiet, music, enjoy the silence. That's a Depeche Mode song for you, those of you who may not know. You should listen to it if you don't know it. Depeche Mode. One of my favorite bands. Back on the topic. Explaining my mediumship experiences, personal ones, and how I experience mediumship, and how to also, I guess the right word for it would be like balance when I am having human reactions and when I'm having spiritual reactions or actions or anything happening to me, know what's what and react accordingly. This morning, I'm going to interrupt my story of my mediumship, but this morning I was brushing my teeth and I said my Reiki principles while I was brushing my teeth. Just for today, I will not worry. Just for today, I will be grateful. Just for today, I will do my work honestly. Just for today, I will not be angry. And just for today, I will be kind to every living thing. Well, I did not be kind to every living thing. So that's one thing. Yeah, I'm not believed, and I meant like by that with that woman who was supposed to be the guest, I wasn't as thoughtful as I could have been in responses, So I said them again. I'm starting over for the day. Just for today, I will not worry, et cetera, et cetera. I already said it, so you don't have to hear it. You already just heard it. You know, to hear it again. I said it to myself again already. So that helps me kind of get my mind back aligned towards the mentality. I'm not going to beat myself up for not doing it right, because that doesn't get me anywhere, beating myself up, And that's the same thing with mediumship. If you get it wrong, a lot of people in mediumship, they worry so much about getting it wrong because, of course, you're telling somebody something that a spirit usually someone they loved is coming through, and you don't want to hurt this person or say anything that'll make them like upset or not, or feel like they're not connecting, and then give them this feeling there's no one out there. They're gone. If that's the worst case for me anyway, to do a reading and be like, I have nothing, that never happens. So there's always something, even if that spirit doesn't come through. We'll get there. So for me in mediumship, when I can't pin down when it was pretty clear that I was working with spirits, but I do remember this one reading, and I do believe I've talked about it on the podcast. I was on a different platform. I think it was when I was about 36, 35. 37, somewhere around in there. And I had a phone call. This woman wanted to get a reading. She didn't say what it was about, but the guides came through and we could do mediumship readings on that platform. So I was just doing a mediumship reading all of a sudden. And that's what I realized. She didn't want to tell me. She really wanted proof that he was still around. And I felt like, I don't remember much, but I do remember the details. It's her private stuff, so I won't talk about that. But what I got out of it was, wow, I said some things in this reading that came through for me that I didn't feel necessarily could be accurate. They didn't make sense to me. And I wanted so badly to offer this woman some sense of peace because I felt the spirit here. But the things I was seeing suddenly, they're very vivid. This is the first time it was this clear, like from a spirit and a person, no idea what the reading was about to start with, because she wouldn't tell me. She was just wanting to see if I would even pick it up. That's how, unsure she was about talking to a psychic about this. And I remember how vivid the whole thing was when the spirit explained. So how has this come out to me? How do I experience the spirit explains? Right? What does that mean? Well, for me, I have talked about this with Misty, I think sometimes on the podcast, but I can kind of, I'll say where I am now with it, because I got to this point through a lot of practice. But the way I experience it at this point on May 8th, May 8th, 2025, May 9th, May 8th, oh shoot, I don't know what date it is. I don't know, but it's sometime in early May 2025. But the way I experience it now is that it's claircognizance. And if you don't know what that is, it drops in like information and just know it. But there is kind of an imagination thing that happens when I am doing mediumship, where it plays out really quickly like that, the whole interaction with the spirit, I guess you could say, the information coming in, the exchanges. But what I experience it is clairvoyantly in my mind's eye. I'll see the spirits acting out these things, and I don't hear them say the things. I just know what they're saying. I see their lips move in my mind's eye, and I see their gestures. I see their clothes sometimes if they want me to. I really pick up on jewelry. Sometimes it's the first thing I start picking up on is any kind of like accessories I really like glasses or anything like that. And then like it helps me to get a picture, or if the person describes what this person looked like to them at the last, like when everybody, y'all listeners, and this is a video on Spotify and YouTube. I wanted to see if you guys, I think I've done this before, like something I'm about to do. So if I get the information of, what they look like, but what I was getting at a minute ago was, or 20 million years ago, you don't know how long that edit was that was that I love to hear what people say is the way they first think of someone in their head when they were alive. Like say, if your grandmother passed away and the very first image you have of her in your mind, like, is it when she's 40? Is it when she's 20? Is it when she was the age she passed? Or is she like 70 years? How old is she? In your memory when you first think of her, what is she wearing? All that stuff. And if I get that, a lot of times they come through really fast. They usually come pretty fast. But if they don't come at all, I used to think it was because possibly they didn't trust me with their person's information. But also it could be that I'm blocking myself, and my guides and stuff are saying, no, you don't want to, let's talk to this one in particular maybe. But the most common thing I really think it is, if I can't connect, is probably, it feels like they are there, but there's something in me blocking get connection. Not them, not their guides, maybe my guides for some reason. Like this is not the situation for her to figure this out with this figure. It's just something else has to happen first. This person in their life. And also, I believe my experience, and this is where I have to like really think about my spiritual side. I don't want to give just any old answer. If I don't have an answer, I won't just make stuff up. I can't, and that kind of goes along in my real life too. I'm not going to just make stuff up because I don't have an answer, I'll say I don't know, and I might talk about all the things I think about it, but I don't know, or something like that. But in my experience, let's say I'm giving you, listener, watcher, a reading, a mediumship reading. Let's say you have a long lost grandmother, passed away when you were in your 30s, let's say, and you did meet her, and maybe she raised you, and maybe you had a lot to do with her in your life until she passed away. And you were 30 or so, let's say. And then when you're in your 40s, you'd like to connect with her. Maybe you're 35, 36, and you want to connect with her. Get some advice from her, from a psychic medium. So you come to me and you're like, can you do this? Can you ask her what I should do in this relationship situation? I can't decide if I want to marry this guy or this guy. It's a tough one to be in. And that's definitely one you want to turn to grandma for. So I would say, remember what you see, or do you have a picture? And remember in your mind what the first thing is. And also at the time, I'm asking my guides to come in for help. And I'm kind of feeling in my body this light feeling that comes through like in my head right through here. And in my third eye area starts kind of buzzing. And by that, I mean, it feels like it's swirling around, like right here, like right in here, like if you're watching. If you're not, listeners, it's like right between your eyebrows and just a little bit above. And then I just feel this energy. It's just the energies are different. That's where I talked about the energetic bodies with the Misty, where your attention span is, where you're concentrating. But in this case, I'm not concentrating on anything, but just what is coming for us, opening the doors, letting the energies flow around me, taking down the boundaries. Keep the safety ones up and the lower energies out. And to me, that is you just kind of think it and it happens that way. You're safe. But I don't remember a time when I couldn't do that. Once I learned how to do that, it always worked. or entities and non-compassionate entities and anybody or anything or any kind of energy that means me no good or it means me harm or any blah, blah, blah. Say these things, and it's myself usually, but all of it's really fast. And the spirit will come through and let's say they are there. And we'll say they aren't there. Let's say the spirit doesn't come through, but Uncle Joe does. And Uncle Joe is like, hey guys, what's up? And we'll figure out who Uncle Joe is because I'll describe what he looks like to me. And that comes through clairvoyantly. So my experience isn't Uncle Joe is just right here all of a sudden. And he's moving and talking and blah, 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 blah. It's not like that. Uncle Joe is like in my head. And I'll explain this to you. I'm looking where this goes. I feel like there's a spirit right there anyway, but it's a kid. But like I would feel them, let's say they're right next to me. Listeners, they're not. The one I'm feeling is kind of over there in front of that hallway door. But it's just the life of a medium. This is where I'm like, this is where you filter part of the walking the spiritual talk and trying to stay balanced is when to talk about it and when not to. But on a psychic podcast, it's definitely a time to talk about this. So let's say they're right here. See that mirror? We'll say they're like right. Oh, cover up my slip in my leg there. See, I'm putting my arm around them. Well, you can't see. Listeners, I have a mirror behind me I'm showing. But so let's see. Like around in here, right next to me, if you're watching, there's not in the mirror, but like in front of it, right here, let's say there's a spirit, and I will feel the energy. I'm feeling an energy of Morgana right next to me, but she's right here. So she's given us an example, guys. So Morgana's right here. I feel her warmth with my hand when I'm touching her. And if you look right here, you may see a distortion in the film where she's sitting. And by that, I mean, I talked about this. You may see speckles of like that they're all around anyway in your vision, little speckles. And I'll see, like, I'll feel them there. And I kind of just feel who it is. Don't always get an answer or no. But this is Morgana. Oh, you're sweet up. She's loving it. And she says some of you will be able to see her. And she's just a big orange fluffy cat if you don't know who she is. And she's my spirit guide. And one of my spirit guides. And she died in 2017. She was a real living cat. Spirit cat. And so is Gandalf, my other cat. If you're a regular listener, you know that. My shadow cat. Morgana, though, she talks. She does talk. But I don't see her mouth go meow, 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 meow. And then it's just like, I see a vision of her. And I'll have like let's say, you did ask about this situation. And I'll say, Morgana, what should they do? Should they marry, like they have these choices. Who should they marry? What's the situation? If I'm not doing cards, I'll ask Morgana what she thinks. She says it better than me a lot of times, and I'll just kind of feel it out for who I'm supposed to ask, first of all. And if I'm supposed to ask the tarot, I just feel compelled to which way to start, each differently with different people. I try to follow that intuition, and I don't, it's just, what it is. So this, for you on the client end, it might look like I'm just looking over here and saying, well, Morgana says that, this guy number one is just amazing as far as, he treats you great. He wants to take you out. He really means what he says. And guy number two is like the best friend, but you have more chemistry with the guy number one. And that's the confusing thing because, well, et cetera. This is what Morgana would say, because she would say, it's confusing because the guy number one is like, you're not used to someone being that so much chemistry there. So that's what's got you worked up about that guy number one. And it's harder with him. And that's why you're considering guy number two, because you really want the friendship more than anything. And you feel it with guy number one, but we can go down now forever. This is what Morgana is like giving us this example of what she would say. And this is how you'd hear it. But for me, it kind of like comes in as a beginning of it. And then I don't remember what I say. Like while I was saying all that, she was channeling. It's not like what most people speak of when they speak of channeling. If you don't know, channeling is when the spirit comes in your body and speaks through you and acts through you. But this is not that exactly. She's telling, it's like I'm translating what she's showing me and telling me with claircognizance. in mediumship. So it's like, claircognizance is the knowing. Mediumship is speaking with the spirits. And Morgana, the spirit guide cat, that's how she communicates to me, and this is how I experience it. So this is different than evidential mediumship in a little bit, not much. But evidential mediumship, you're producing facts. Like you're producing, like, I see this cat. She is orange and fluffy. She was a princess. That's the kind of stuff that you would get with, they would get like, a princess mean anything to you? Princess. Yes, she was Princess Morgana. Well, what about the Empress? Because I'm getting the Empress too. Yes, she became Empress Morgana when she died. Stuff like that would happen on my end in an evidential mediumship reading. I would take it. They said that. And those are really fascinating too, but that's not the kind of mediumship I learned to begin with. And I think it's a great way to start and always way to do it. If you don't know if you can do mediumship, that's just a little side here. I think everyone can, but if you want to try it, that's a really great place to start, is in a circle with people you're comfortable with, doing evidential mediumship. But if you want those real specific answers, I mean, you can do it with evidential mediumship. For me, I found that just a long, long time. Oh, here comes Gandalf. He had a nightmare, guys. I think it might be time to wrap this up pretty soon. But I kind of want to add in a little bit more about, not always having, I did that again. I always have to. I always want to try to put my spirituality into my life and everything I do. I try to do the right thing for others and myself, and do the right thing for others and myself, and put a lot of love in life. When I can't do that, I don't feel guilty about it. I try to look at where I could have changed things, and maybe I'll do it differently next time. And if I don't, I'm going to explore why. I'm going to try to do this. And it's what I try to live my life with. Not always. Sometimes I just cry. That's not so bad. That's a really good way to handle things sometimes. Let's all cry together, listeners and watchers. And think about mediumship. And be authentic. I love you, watchers and listeners, and I love Everclear, my sponsor. Everclear is an advice app and website where you can get advice from psychics and empaths so you can get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. I love Everclear. I am an advisor on Everclear under the name Lisa Russick. I used to be Lisa P, but now I'm Lisa Russick, my name, which is my real name. So I'm real excited about that. If you want to get a reading with me, I'd love to have one with you. Everclear.com or Everclear Advice app on the Play Store and in the Apple Store. Apple App Store. And listeners and watchers, any advice I've got for you on this one, I guess I would say, the best part about working with mediumship for me is the companionship of the spirits. But if you want to be a medium, or you are a medium and you're just watching this and you already know all this stuff and you're just kind of curious about how someone else experiences it, hey, leave a comment. That's your homework. That's not advice. That's homework. I would love to hear how other people experience mediumship. I would love to have a podcast with like 4 other mediums and us all talk about it. That would be a party. I'd love it. And Gandalf, oh, there he is. He says, I missed a podcast. Oh my gosh. He's here, though, to say goodbye, listeners and watchers. Goodbye, listeners and watchers, and I love you so much. Peace. Woo, woo. Ow! Yeah.